Trading Nut, episode 183.
But, chasing those home runs, it very rarely happens. I think that's a huge problem with traders is that they're always trying to hit a home run. You don't need to hit a home run. You can hit the occasional home run, but if you're trying to hit a home run every single day, you're going to end up risking way more and losing a lot more than you really want.
The market's going to do something. Your job is not to fight it.
The market never, ever runs away. It's always there.
That personal diary of trading will make you a much better trader than...
I could be right about the direction, but wrong about the trade.
Don't focus on the monetary side.
Trying to make too much money on a trade is what I have seen killed every trader.
Your losses offer you some of the greatest insight you can find into your mistakes.
Relax, learn the process.
Candlestick pattern trading is a freaking trap.
Don't be in a rush to become a millionaire.
Let the market tell you what the market wants to tell you.
This podcast is not financial, trading, or investing advice of any kind. What's up, traders? Welcome to another installment of the Trading Nut podcast. I'm your host, Cam Hawkins, and today we've got Kyle from Jade Capital FX on the show. Now, Kyle was introduced to me by a past guest, Rodrigo Torres of City Traders Imperium. He was mentoring him for a bit, and he said, you got to get this guy on because he's done some amazing stuff around funded trader programs. In fact, at the time of recording, he was at $3.2 million in funding. And he's got a crazy story where he made 60 grand in 1 month, or over 60 grand in 1 month, and had a bit of a nightmare with it. So you're going to hear that in a second. He's an ICT style trader. So if you're an ICT fan or learning ICT, then you want to check this episode out and the video we shot after the show. And I've just had an update from Rod that Kyle has now passed the $5 million mark in funding. So that's something completely rare and unique in itself. So you're going to get this here first on Trading Nut. And also, if you are looking for a funded trader program, you're going to hear about my sponsors, City Traders Imperium, and how they've got their own 100% profit share funded trader program as well. So guys, go and check that out. You'll hear an ad in a second. Now, we've got the July Trading Nut Funded Cup starting next week. So if you haven't registered yet, there's a link below the video or in the podcast description, or jump over there to tradingnut.com and you'll find it there. Still chance to get involved, and you're actually competing to win a funded trading account of $100,000 with my sponsors, City Traders Imperium. The Algo Funder Mastermind bot is now complete. So I finished the sell side of it. So it's got the buy side and the sell side. It's fully automated, semi-automated. There's over 90 settings. Some of the very first early tests have actually come out very well. And you can still get a copy of it if you join Robot Builders Club before the end of July. It's still available in the Robot Lab. You get the source code, you get everything else that comes with it, the videos, the instructions, how to use it. So it's an awesome little piece of kit that you can put on your chart, semi-automate, trade it semi-automatically or fully automated. It's up to you. So yeah, there's a link over there underneath the video for that as well. And last but not least, we've got a new thing happening here on Trading Nut. It started this week. We've got the team at Aerial FX doing a pre-market analysis from a smart money concept point of view for the week ahead. So if you're looking to either try and get a bias or confirm your bias or build up a picture of where things might go across the week, then they're doing it over 18 markets. So there's 18 markets that they break down in a 30-minute segment as well, so really short and sweet. So that's over there on the Trading Nut YouTube channel. You'll find it there as one of the new playlists as well, guys. So enough from me. Let's get on with the show. Hear from Kyle, but first, let's hear from my sponsor. As you'll know, as a trader, one of the biggest issues can be coming up with enough capital to make it worthwhile. Well, the good news is my sponsor, City Traders Imperium, have solved this problem for you. Their day trading and swing trading funding programs mean you can trade between $10,000 and $4 million in capital with up to 100% profit share. Yes, you get everything you make on the account. Plus, the folks at CTI have made it super stress-free, allowing you up to 6 months to pass the funding challenge, which means if life gets in the way, you can park things for a while and stick to your trading plan. To check them out, click the link in the description below or in the card above. All right, folks, here we are on Trading Nut. We've got Kyle in the house from Jade Capital FX. Now, Kyle's been recommended to the show by my funding sponsor, City Traders Imperium, not for the reason that he's works for them or anything like that, but they just know him. I think you've learned a bit from them as well, and you've been recommended because you've passed I don't know how many funding challenges and got how many withdrawals or made how many withdrawals, but you've sent me screenshots of all these things, and it's quite phenomenal. So I don't think I've seen anyone who's done so well with funding challenges everywhere and been able to pass them. You're an ICT sort of student, well, not sort of student. You've gone through his full mentorship, haven't you? So
yeah.
I know it's been a struggle, though, to get here, and that's what we're going to hear about today. So do you want to start off by telling the guys a little bit about you and how you got into trading and your journey to now?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a really long story. I had kind of a life-changing event right before I graduated from high school. My mother passed away about 2 months before I graduated. So I had, didn't really have plans for college or anything. I kind of just went away to college. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't know I wanted to study. And I went to a notorious party school. So I was focused on everything but school. So my grades suffered. And it was definitely odd for me because in high school, I, graduated with honors. I was co-captain of the soccer team. I was doing pretty well, right? And then I kind of found myself that I was lost for whatever reason. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Nothing really interested me at the time. So my grades suffered. I think I had like a 2.0 GPA. My father noticed I wasn't doing well. I stopped going to class. And then I had kind of just quit school, came back home. And then I was kind of like bumming it for a couple months, I think. And then my best friend down the street actually had told me to, come over, check this out. Like, we started trading Forex. I was like, what is that? And they kind of just explained, we're trading currencies between, different countries. And this was back in, I think, 2012, right? So that kind of, put the hook in me. I got extremely interested in, we were kind of messing around, blew up his account, and probably a single trade. This was, I think, when the Fukushima power plant had happened,
tsunami,
right? Yeah. So we blew up his account on dollar yen. I don't even remember what happened with the move, but his $300 was gone, right? But we kind of got that rush from it, and I kind of saw that there was a possibility to make a lot of money in the marketplace. So my father kind of gave me an ultimatum. I wasn't working. I was working. I was just delivering pizza at the pizza shop, right? He gave me an ultimatum. He said, either going back to school or the money that your mother left behind, like, I'm keeping that. So I didn't really have an option. I love trading. So I went back to a local private school right across the river, and I started studying business and finance. This was back in 2012. I graduated, I think, 2014. And coming from a small private school that's not known for finance, like trying to get into a trading firm, it's pretty much impossible. Unless I'm in the city and networking with people, I was just kind of going to a school that was more known for nursing, right?
Right.
And all this time I was trading. I had stumbled across some of the more known threads online at the time. It was James 16 and Sonic R. Thinking back, 10 years ago, there's not as much information about trading as there was back then. And even back then, it was all forum-based. So you couldn't chat. You weren't really chatting with anybody. There was no video. Nobody was really guiding you on the psychological aspect of trading. All I had were people posting forum images online like, all right, if this red line crosses the green line, you're buying it. So I had gone through all those retail stages of trading, system hopping, all that. And then kind of fast forward into my graduation, I didn't have any outlook of a job. My friend that I had known from paintball, I was playing competitive paintball. It's weird. He got me this job in construction. I didn't want to do construction. I didn't know anything about it. Right. So I was doing like admin work. And then fast forward a couple of years past that, I started working in high-end residential, right? So I had built this skill set where I could read drawings. I'm putting these budgets together for high-end multi-million-dollar homes. And this whole time I'm trading, trying to get out of that rat race. It was, my days got longer and longer and longer, and leading up to last year, I was stressed out. I felt like I had a target on my back. But one thing it did teach me was that when I'm working with budgets, I was seeing huge numbers on a daily basis, just in and out, right? These people were spending $10,000 on their kitchen faucet. It was amazing to me. Like, I was like, wow, I'm not even making that in a month. And these people are buying, a kitchen faucet that's worth, more than my month's salary. So being in that, I feel like it helped me learn how to desensitize the money and just focus on trading itself. So, I mean, before that, I had almost given up on trading because I had blown up so many accounts. And then it was very odd. It came full circle. The same person that actually got me into trading had ran into somebody that was local at a bar. And
it's always the way.
Yeah,
I keep hearing this say.
And he had mentioned to me, he was like, I trade, I think this guy's the real deal. You should check him out. Like, forget everything that you ever learned about retail trading. And mind you, I'm already 5-6 years in from me unsuccessfully trading. I had no idea what I was doing, right?
Well, can I just ask, what actually were you doing at that point, sort of 5 or 6 years in? What would you call your strategy?
Honestly, I didn't have one. I mean, I was jumping back and forth. Not only that, but I was going through a whole lot emotionally, right? I had just lost my parent.
Yeah.
My father is like a huge chain smoker. So he ended up, being diagnosed with cancer as well. So I had to deal with loss. I had to deal with uncertainty in my life. Those were two things that really changed my perspective on life. And not only that, on trading also, right? So I think, I don't know, I just had the resilience to say, all right, I'm going to try this one last time. I'm going to give it one good shot. And it was like the first video that I had watched of his. Everything clicked for me.
So hang on, we've missed a bit there. So your friend met this guy at a bar and said, he's the real deal. You got to learn from him. And then what happened after that? How did you get in contact with this guy at the bar?
Honestly, I just messaged him. He gave me his phone number. I reached out to him, and that's when he had told me. He said, "Forget everything that you learned and just dive into ICT." So pretty much, I pretty much started from scratch almost. But the first video that I watched from ICT, he talked about the market in a way that I didn't hear people talking about the market. Everybody's talking about technical indicators, fundamentals. And even now, I don't really follow fundamentals too much, even though I do follow like the global macro money flows. I do follow that. But as far as fundamental like news releases, I don't really pay attention too much to the numbers or anything. The market's going to go where it's going to go. But he kind of laid out the market in a way that I didn't get at the time, right? I was watching all these documentaries. I was listening to podcasts, even at work. And I just saw how people used to trade back in the day, right? I saw pit traders, they didn't have a chart, right? Even, I guess, 20, 30 years ago, people were drawing the closing price on graph paper. So to me, that was very interesting how he explained how the market operated on liquidity. And even then, it took me 3 or 4 years past being introduced to ICT to really understand that just because you have a strategy, that doesn't mean you're going to be profitable. There's a huge gap that you have to go from just knowing what trading is. There's a huge skill set that you have to build. You have to understand your platform. You have to understand the risk that you're taking. A lot of platforms don't even offer a simple position size calculator. So if I want to risk, 1%, 2% on a trade, I don't have any idea what, if I put this lot size in, how much am I risking really? And I think even the majority of people, they don't understand how to do that. I think 90% of people don't even really know how to manage their money in their bank account. So how can they manage more funds, right? They want to go from A to B without the process of going from start to finish, right? So like when you first start trading, you're just learning about a couple things. You might be learning about a technical indicator or strategy. And then you have to learn about macroeconomics. Then you have to learn about risk management. You have to learn about psychology, right? These are all things that tie into a profitable trading system.
Can you sort of break down the journey across, learning the techniques from ICT to then applying them and actually starting to get to a point where you can make some money out of this?
Right. So, I was in his private mentorship. I still am. When I first started, it's like, he says it's like drinking water from a fire hose. And it is. Trading is like that in general, Most people, if you talk to them about trading, you're losing them in the first 10 minutes. You're losing their attention in the first 10 minutes, right? So to go from learning about one specific concept to possibly learn about 5 to 10 things, even within a single year, it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of thought to think about, all right, why is the market doing this? How do I apply the tools within that market condition? Right? You can't just skip the whole process and go from inconsistent, unprofitable trader to professional.
And how did you sort of overcome that from practice? I mean, what did that practice entail for you?
For me, it was blowing up accounts. I had seen a whole bunch of things. I was around for the Eurozone crisis. I had bought Bitcoin when it was, I think, $3,500, and it ran up to $20,000. The first time, this was back in 2018. I was around for, Ripple. I had bought Ripple at 23 cents, I think. And that all those trades, right? I, probably made 300, 400% on my account. And then within the next week or two, I would slowly blow them up because I was trying to chase a move that was already done. So, there was all these time periods where as a retail trader, you want to be able to just leave your job, right? You can't possibly do that, making $50, $75, $100,000, living above your means, and then putting the rest into a trading account, trying to turn your 500, 1,000, 5,000 into 100,000 overnight. It's not going to happen. And I do have a good story for that as well. We talk about that, but just blowing up all those accounts and experiencing all those crazy things, right? I was in dollar CAD when oil went negative, right? People don't know that the Canadian dollar is tied with oil because that's one of their biggest exports. So I was in oil when it went negative, and then I was trying to chase that move, even though there was no room for it to go, right? The dollar CAD had ripped, I think, 1,000 points. I had made 400% probably in a day, and then over time I just slowly gave it back, and it happened multiple times to me. So I had to take breaks in between. It's funny because one of the times I had taken a break, I had blown up probably 30 or 40% of my account. I withdrew the money, and then I bought my wife's engagement ring. Like shortly after that, I had almost given up on trading so many times because it wasn't ICT. It wasn't really his technicals that helped me. It was him the jawboning videos where he's just talking about your psychology and what you should be doing when this happens, when you're down, when you're in drawdown, how to trade out of drawdown. Those are the things that you really have to pay attention to, because I'm sure you've seen, even people with tons of wealth can blow it up in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a staircase up, elevator down.
Yeah.
And it's like that with trading, right? And even if I plotted my life's equity curve with my trading equity curve, it's very much like that. When I was going through rough periods, my trading was suffering. And if you don't protect yourself from that downside, there's no way you're going to stay alive in the game. Like, the market is always moving. It's always going to be moving today, tomorrow, the next day, the next year. And that's, getting rid of FOMO is a huge thing. You don't have to be in a trade every single day.
And were you journaling at this time?
So I was very inconsistent. Like, I'm a serial procrastinator. So I was journaling, but I wasn't journaling to analyze it, right? I was just going through the motions, not analyzing what I was doing. And I just kept reloading my accounts and blowing them one after another without recognizing, like, I'm never going to get rich quick. It might happen to a couple people, but the odds are seriously against you. And I think that's why 95% of people don't make it. Or you have to be able to learn how to manage money on a small scale before you can do it on a big scale. But you're never going to get there if you can't manage the $1,000 in your account. And what happens if you have $1,000 and you turn it to 50 and you're still trading the same way that you did with 1,000, right? If you're risking 25, 50% of your account, right? The more you risk, your risk of ruin actually increases with that. And a lot of people don't understand that. You have to learn how to de-lever to stay alive.
And so like with the with this like blowing of accounts, was it more losing streaks or was it more just over risking on that account?
It was a little bit of both. It was losing streaks, not knowing where the market was going, right? Like sometimes I would have a bias and the intraday, price action would take me out, and then they would take it my original direction. And I was over trading in between those periods, right? So I was so focused on the P&L. If I saw my trade going against me even just a little bit of drawdown, I would cut it at a loss, and you're booking that loss. Like you can't get around that. So when I started, when I really was working in construction, it got me comfortable working with budgets and working with numbers. And, trading is a numbers game, it's a probability game. So you have to be okay with taking, the losses with the wins. You can't just say, all right, I'm going to trade this way and hope for the best. It doesn't work like that. You have to have a plan in place. You have to follow it day in, day out.
And so when things started to turn around, I mean, how did that look from your point of view, possibly even working a day job still and seeing things start to work for you, like the consistency come in?
So I guess another funny story is I met another friend of mine through ICT. These people came into my life at a time where, they're complete strangers to me. They don't know who I am. But we built a relationship, and he definitely helped me through a lot of personal things. I wasn't focused on the right things, to be honest. Like I was so focused on trading. I was so focused on trading that I couldn't focus on the rest of my life. Like I was eating unhealthy. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I wasn't working out. A whole bunch of things that were holding me back trading wise had nothing to do with trading. Right. And so I started focusing more on just letting go and just being okay with the outcome, because life is so uncertain. You can't control the market once you're in a trade, right? It's almost like A to B. When you're trying to go from, newbie trader to professional, you don't know what's going to happen in between. And it's the same thing with a trade. Once you're in that trade, you have no idea what's going to happen. It could look perfect and it could run right to your stop loss. So the one thing he helped me with was just submitting to the market, submitting to time itself, and just letting things happen organically, right? I think when I was blowing up accounts, I was trying to force something that was just impossible at the time. I was trying to project my opinions on the marketplace. And when it didn't go my way, I would, either double down or just keep trying to trade in the direction that the market wasn't going. I think staying on, having your thumb on the market and where it's actually going helps me so much. I understand, even though I don't trade equities, I don't trade crypto, just understanding where the money is going and how, the central banks are changing their rates and how the global economy is changing around that is so important. If you haven't been short the market all year, either you're making a little bit of money, but you're not making as much money as the bear side, to be honest. So staying with that same bias for months at a time, it's hard to do, because as a newbie trader, you see a huge spike on the intraday chart after news, and you want to, naturally you want to buy it. So for me, that was me for years, right? I would see a huge spike and want to chase price, and then I would get stopped out.
Cool. So it sounds like it was a massive journey for you to try and get to this point of, like, I suppose, becoming consistent. And at that point, you decided to start taking on funding challenges. Is that right?
Yeah. So I actually, this was actually right after the pandemic happened. I was working from home a little bit. I wasn't really trading. I was kind of, just watching the markets here and there. And then, some promotions started popping up for some of these funding challenges. I think FTMO was probably the first one that I had come across. And the deal for me looked so great. I could pay $1,000 and get funded with $200,000. That's perfect. Like, that's almost enough for me to possibly make a living out of this. Right. So I did get funded. I actually went for 2 accounts. So I was actually funded with $400,000, probably my first couple funded accounts that I had ever had. And I just tried to push it so hard. I tried to push that $400,000 to its limit. And I did push it to its limit. You know, I got a profit split of almost $60,000 in 1 month, and then I blew that account probably the week after.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, the stats really don't lie. You know, I think a lot of traders fail even getting to the first profit split, even though there's no more time limits. And not only that, but understanding that once you're funded, you actually have to reduce your risk by a lot. You know, the amount that you're trading is not the full account. Even though you have the leverage to open 10, 15, 20 lots, it's not a smart thing to do because your drawdown limit is only 10%. So really, if you're going to risk 1%, that's 10% of your drawdown limit. So that's, you know, you can only afford to lose 10 trades in a row. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but longevity-wise, I just saw that it was a much better opportunity to just try and get funded at more firms and trade with less risk. That way I'm never at risk of blowing out my account because that $60,000 profit split that I had gotten, a lot of that money had gone to just trying to get funded again.
So you would like, yes, so once you blow that, and we'll go back to like how on earth you did get it to 60 and then blow, you spent like thousands of dollars trying to get funded at other firms.
Yeah. I mean, I used some of those profits to roll it into more challenges, but it took me a long time to just get funded back at that same firm.
Right.
And
okay,
the headaches that I had in between those periods of not being funded, it was brutal to me because my father had just passed away from cancer back in November. Right. So I had lost my account and I was trying to get back my funded account, even though I was under pressure. Like I didn't want to be at my job because it was just grinding me down. I loved doing what I was doing, but it felt like I didn't have any purpose. I was building homes for, you know, multimillionaires, billionaires. And, you know, at the end of the day, some of them were still miserable. Right. So I think those two life events definitely put my time into perspective because, you know, my time was just flying past. Even though I'm still young, like my years and my seasons were just all blurring together. You know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't about the money. It was about the freedom. Like I took a chance on myself because, you know, I did get funded and I said, you know, even if I make 2.5% a month, I'm still going to make almost as much as I did in my job.
So how, like going back to the 60K that you took, so how did you get it to 60K? So 60K profit, so that's like you made like 90K or something in terms of on 400,000.
Yeah, so this was back in May. I think if you check Bitcoin's price back in May, there was a flash crash during the Asian session, and pretty much I was levered to the tits. Like I probably made that $80,000 within 2 minutes. So I knew, not 2 minutes, but probably like half an hour to 2 hours. And this time I was just playing video games online with my brother. But, you know, chasing those home runs, it very rarely happens. You know, I think that's a huge problem with traders is that they're always trying to hit a home run. You don't need to hit a home run. You can hit the occasional home run, but if you're trying to hit a home run every single day, you're going to end up risking way more and losing a lot more than you really want to.
So hang on, let me just get this straight. So you made like 80 grand on one trade on Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I
was probably short 10 Bitcoin on 400,000. But I mean,
and then you stopped.
If you do the math, right? If you do the math, you're levered up. You know.
Yeah. And so then
100 to 1 leverage pretty much.
And then you stopped for that month until the profit.
Yeah,
split
I stopped for that
out.
month until the profit split got paid out.
And
then when I got funded with the live account, I blew it within 2 days.
Because you have to. So that wasn't okay. Yeah. So hang on.
You're risking almost 5%.
Yeah.
To try and make that.
Yeah. Okay. So you're risking 5%. So had you lost that first trade, you would have had another 5. You had one more trade to go.
Yeah.
To get a profit. Okay. So you were going, as they say, balls to the wall.
It was just balls to the wall because I was trying to leave my job.
Yeah.
Right. I was so unhappy. I wasn't unhappy with my job, but it was a grind. I'm not a morning person and I don't like answering to people. I'm more of a morning person now because I can do whatever I want. But at the time it was such a rat race to just try and wake up. Right. My office hours. I mean, construction it's going nonstop. We were working in like a private gated community. So, these guys are working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. So some nights, I was barely home, had dinner, went to bed, got up, did the same thing all over again. Not only that, I was trading the London session during those time periods. So, I was running on no sleep all through work just to try and get home, to spend a little bit of time with my wife before going back to bed and doing it all over again.
Yeah, so that would be like 3 a.m.
I'm trading at work. I'm like really distracted at work because I saw the opportunity was there. I think that's a huge thing is like when you first get exposed to the market, it seems like everybody's losing. They're just, the brokers aren't out to get you. They don't really care about your 10 lot stop loss or even your 5 lot stop loss. They don't, as a retail trader, it feels like, you're taking that loss personally. So you have to get back in and make it back. But, that's not how the market works. You have to go with the flow of things and you can't force it. You can't expect a huge move every single day. I mean, the markets have been crazy recently, right? But you're probably going to see a lot of people that weren't used to a bear market in 2020 get destroyed this year because they're trying to buy every single dip, right? The NASDAQ might be up 1% one day. Now it's down 3% the next day. So as a retail trader, when I used to see those huge green days, I'm like, this is the bottom of the market. I'm going in and I'm blowing accounts.
Yeah, you got to be literally completely neutral almost every single day. And I mean, it's so fluid. Anyway, back to your funded accounts after you got the 60K, which is a great story. How did you get back into these other ones and get funded and then make consistent withdrawals, which were more, in line with a salary, I suppose?
Right. So after I blew that account, I signed up for, a whole bunch of different prop firms. I signed up for MyForex funds. I'm max allocated there. I signed up for the prop trading. I'm almost max allocated there. They offer 600,000, but I have 400,000. And then I'm also funded at the prop trading for 400,000. So, I mean, all these accounts were only $1,000 to $2,000, right? People don't realize you only have to make one trade to make that back. And not only that, but once you hit that first profit split, you're getting your refund. So you're not in it for anything, but people can't even get to that first profit split, right? I don't really follow so the funded trader has a leaderboard section on there. I just know that whoever's trading like that is either a god or they're going to blow up their account. It's just a matter of time, right? To me, that's not sustainable. You can't make 125% a month and think you're going to be able to do that month over month. That just, to me, it doesn't make any sense. And why would you need to? Especially if you can, some of these firms are offering $12 million at the fivers if you have 3 accounts with them, but you have to hit that last level. It might take you 5 years to get there, but think about it. If you can make that 10% on your $20,000 account, at some point you will hit the $12 million account. It's the same concept, right? So in my dashboard, I have accounts that are $400,000. And if you look at the fivers, you would look at the P&L and be like, wow, that's not enough money for me to live off. But you have to think about long term, right? It's the same percentage, but it's such a huge, it's the number is way different. You're looking at a $1,200 gain in one account and $90,000 in another over 2 months, right? It's the same process. You just have to start small and then scale it up.
And okay, so what was your approach around risk management for the going back into this after having a crazy approach to risk management, getting lucky on a trade and walking away with half a year's salary for or even a full year's salary for people?
Right. So I mean that event alone showed me that it wasn't sustainable to try and hit those home runs all the time. I could try and do that, but there's no way I'm going to be able to leave my job trying to do that.
Because at that point, what was your average win rate at that point?
It was probably 30% maybe.
Okay, so
I was taking bigger losses than I should have been. Right? So I was messing with my stop loss. I was scaling into losers, so I was blowing up that way. So I really wasn't looking at the win rate because right now for the month I have a 35% win rate and I'm up, a decent amount of money. So it wasn't about the win rate to me. It was more about all the other little things that I should have been doing. I should have been trading on side at some points. I should have been trading a lot smaller at some points. I should have just stopped for the week at some points. right? You have to learn that over time. A lot of my time spent over the years was me trying to force trades on a Monday or on a Friday when the market really wasn't moving. Like I was trading on Thanksgiving. That doesn't make any sense. You know?
Yeah.
Like
and
if
these things you need to make these mistakes sometimes.
Yeah, if you want to hunt the sheep, you have to operate when they're awake. You can't be operating when there's, the herd is not around. They're just asleep somewhere. Right? So if you want to ride the coattails of smart money, you have to be operating within specific time frames. You shouldn't be trading Asia when you're trying to trade the euro, right? Europe is closed and US is closed. So why am I trading during Asia?
Yeah, it's probability, right? The probability of success is going to be, a bigger move is going to be much, much lower. You might get them. Yeah, they might happen now and again, but the probabilities just aren't there.
Right. And that was the thing is like with the market, it lures you in.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes there'll be a huge move in Asia, but that's not high probability. Right. Over time, you're going to end up taking losses if you try and trade that way.
Now, so let's go back to your risk management. What was your risk management for these future funding challenges that you took?
Right. So obviously during the first phase, you have to risk a little bit more. You have to risk 1% to 2% because if you're not risking that much, even 10R over a period of 30 days is a little bit difficult to do. Right. So you're risking 1% to make 10. You're risking 1% to make, it depends on what your risk reward ratio is. But if you're risking 1, you have to make 10R of that. So if you're making 1 to 2 every day, it's going to take you, 5 days to do it. But, every day is not a trade. You're not going to be able to find a trade every single day. You're going to have losses in between that. So a lot of people, I feel like, go out of the gate way too hot. They try and get funded right away, right? Don't use your high risk trade unless you're down from the initial balance and you have 5 days left, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you have 20 days left, you don't need to risk a whole lot to hit that 10%. You could keep risking 1% here and there, and try not to overtrade. I see I do a lot of research, right? I look into other people's funded accounts. If you look at their trade history, it's kind of crazy to me. So I think a lot about cumulative risk too. How many trades am I opening at 1% per position, right? If I open 50 trades in a day, I'm taking 50% risk in a day.
Yeah.
Right. Cumulatively, because you don't know what's going to happen. You could get stopped out every which way, So having a limit on how much you're trading, right? Get through that first phase and then scale back, maybe 0.5%, 0.25% on phase 2. And then once you're funded, it's more about capital preservation than it is about making money. Right? Because there's no time limit now. For me, I'm funded with almost $3 million now, and I don't have any time limit. There's no time constraints for me. So I don't have to trade tomorrow. I don't have to trade the next day. I don't have to trade the next week. Right? And then the next trade for me is the most important because I could blow all of those accounts up in one bad trade. And that's where a lot of people mess up is they get a little bit, cocky. They get a little too egotistical. They think they have the market figured out. And then that next trade just blows them up.
And how do you manage all these funded accounts? Sorry, if you had to count them, how many have you got? And then how do you manage, like I'm guessing you're saying that you're taking the same trades on all the different accounts. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so I just use a trade copier. Some of the firms don't allow it, but most of them do. And you could set your risk multipliers on that also. Because I'm trading almost 13, I think, funded accounts.
Right.
That's between, five different firms. So I'm just, all my trades are based off of a 1 multiplier. So I'm only risking 0.25% really on any given trade. And then it just copies it based on the account balance.
And so what, on a $3 million funded account or group of accounts, what would be a typical monthly take home?
I guess it's hard to project because each month I've gotten funded with more capital. Right. So Q1, I might have made 62,000. Right. Q2, it's a little bit higher than that.
Right.
So for my goal going full time though this year wasn't for me to make a ton of money. Right. I had lived below my means long enough to save up enough money to be okay with not having a job for 6 months to 12, 6 to 12 months. And a lot of people can't even get to that point, right? They're buying things that they don't need, or they're living in a house that's too big for them. Whatever the case is, you have to learn how to manage your money properly before you can become a profitable trader, because that's all it is, money management. If you go out and buy the biggest house or the biggest car, you're over leveraging your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be able to save up enough to feel comfortable not having to trade every day.
Now you mentioned you got a wife. I mean, does she work, and has she been having to support you during this journey? Like, is there pressure on her?
Yeah, she supports me emotionally for sure. I think a couple of times, I had told her like, hey, I blew up my account again. 30%, 40% in a week, blew it up. She's always been telling me to just keep sticking with it. And it's taken a long time to get to the point where I know exactly what I should be doing in the marketplace every day, because I've had all those previous experiences in the market to know like what I should be doing or how to manage my risk more effectively based on what's going on around me.
Now, if you had to sort of sum it up in like a minute or two around somebody like looking into these funded accounts and looking into getting funded and then managing the funding once they've, passed the challenge, assuming that they get to that point, what's your sort of overall recommendation with all the learnings you've got? And it sounds like you've got a ton of them.
So for me personally, I just wouldn't worry so much about trying to make money. You have to focus on learning how to trade properly first. And then once you can prove it to yourself that you can do it on a small account, don't just take the profits and, buy stupid things with it, right? You should be taking that and reinvesting it in yourself. Not only that, but you should be trying to build up your own personal account to eventually be self-sustainable, where you don't have to rely on some of these prop firms, because some of these prop firms are going under. And that was another part of my diversifying my risk, was that I don't want to just be funded at one firm. What happens if that firm goes under? Now I can't trade for a living anymore, right? So regardless of, I don't think any of these firms are going to go away anytime soon. I just think the industry is going to get a little bit bigger from here. But I guess my advice would just to be stick to your plan. You have to stick to your plan. You have to stick to the long-term outlook, right? You have to think 4-5 years down the line. Do you want to be managing the $1,000 that you used to have the same way? Because that's where I was, right? 5 years down the line, I didn't have anything to show for it. So, a long-term goal is to be able to get to those, hit those milestones that you want to hit in a smart way. You can't just go from milestone A to milestone Z and risk it all in between to try and get there faster. All right, it's not going to happen. It's, it's a hard thing to do.
Now, if you had to sort of let's go into some of the stats around your trading. If you had to break it down into like a typical week, how many trades are you taking? Win percent, risk to reward ratio on average. What are those things look like?
So I usually try and take 3-4 trades a week. So that's, I'm not really trading on Fridays. I'm not really trading on Mondays. It's mostly Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And if the price action is really good, if I take a loss if I take a loss early in the session, I don't mind taking another trade, right? But my loss limit for the week is, 3 losses in a row and I'm done. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'll have 3 winners, right? But overall, I think my win rate is about 60%, which is, pretty good in my opinion. And obviously, as a trader, you're always trying to get better, right? You're never trying to just hit a plateau and just say that's it, right? I think Mamba mentality taught us a lot, where, champions don't have any balance in their lives because they're always trying to get better. They're not focused on how much money they're making. They're not focused on any of the outside influences, right? When Tiger steps up to the tee, he's focused on golf. He's not focused on, his tee shot, I'm making $2,000, right? I don't know if you've seen the stat pages, but it's ridiculous. Like, Tiger's not focused on that. He's focused on playing golf. And trading is the same way. You have to understand how to trade first before you make money. Once you know how to trade, you can scale it infinitely. I think infinitely because I'm in the Forex market and it's the most liquid market on the planet. A lot of people think it's a scam. And you would just look at them in a funny way because, well, if it's a scam, you shouldn't be using the US dollar anymore. You shouldn't be using the euro anymore. So you really have to look long term. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Because if you don't change those bad habits now, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you're going to regret it. You're going to spend a lot of time thinking about, oh, I should have been doing this, or I should have been managing my money better. And the time's just going to go by so fast, right? You only have one life, right? Your trading account is one life. If it's blown up, it's blown up. And, losses compound just as fast, right? If you lose 50% of your account, now you have to make back 100%. And a lot of people don't understand that. Is like, you don't ever want to draw down 5% if you're only allowed, 10% drawdown. You don't want to do it. Either that, or you just have to be okay with just taking your time and building it back to the initial balance before you go full size again.
What would you say your risk to reward is on average?
It's about 2 to 1, 3 to 1.
And what instruments do you trade?
I mostly trade the euro and the pound. I trade a little bit of indices, but some of the forex firms they don't offer indices. So when I'm trying to use my trade copier, I'm trying to trade forex. That way, it's copied across all of them. One of my accounts at the Funded Trader, I'm just trading as like my high risk account. But obviously, I have to be on top of my game in order to do that because I'm risking 1% on that account. But you have to have a regressive risk system. Let's say if you have 1 or 2 losses in a row, you can't be trading 1% or 2% again. A lot of people try and size up and make that back. But once you're funded, what is the pressure for you to try and make money? That's what I mean by you have to have everything around you in place financially so you can trade without pressure.
That's a big part of it. Now, what about like time frames? What's your favorite entry time frame?
I like the 15-minute, and I use the daily a lot for my bias. So, I mean, if you can learn technical analysis, you could take away the symbol, you could take away the time frame. All the time frames look the same. But a lot of newer traders try and start out at the lower time frame. What they don't realize is it's like performing surgery, right? You're trying to jump down to a lower time frame, and it's basically like you need a PhD. You have to have your decision making has to be by the second or by the minute, rather than on the daily chart where you have time to think about your position, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but if you're over trading on the lower time frame, you're just over trading. You're not learning from that experience. You're just over trading based on emotion, right? I was doing that for a long time. The market spikes, I'm buying it. Market drops, I'm selling it.
Now, what about like sort of your typical trading day? I mean, how's that structured?
So it depends. So we just joined the CrossFit gym. So really, I've kind of been waking up at like 5 a.m., get to my charts around the New York session for like 6, 7 a.m. And then I'm trading until about 11. I'm usually done. Right. And then I kind of just spend the rest of my day doing whatever. Right now, I have another business that I'm in talks with Rodrigo about. But, obviously the whole point of trading was just my freedom. So really, I'm just spending a lot of more time working out, spending time with my wife, just spending time around the house, doing things that I like doing.
Cool.
And not so much on trading because when I was obsessed with trading, my performance was worse. Right? Like you can't just stare at the screens all day long.
Yeah.
Like the trades aren't just going to appear out of nowhere just because you want them to.
Yeah. Now what about like the entering a trade? I mean, were you entering at market or setting orders to be triggered?
I like trading market orders. I'm not really a fan of limit orders. I just like being at the screen and I like pressing the button.
Okay.
I'm not really. I just follow the market structure really.
And sorry, just back on that. So for guys that don't know who Rodrigo is, been a past guest of the show, Rodrigo Torres, go and check him out. Also, he's one of the guys over there at City Traders Imperium funding program. So he's doing a live stream here on the channel as well, should I say, every week. So if you guys want to find out more about him, that's where you need to go. Now, what about in the beginning? What do you think gave you an edge over other people that aren't able to get funded or haven't made a living out?
I wouldn't even say in the beginning because it took me a long time just to get to the point where I am. But I think the biggest shift for me was just to let go of the outcome of the trade. I did have a call with Rodrigo and he helped me a lot last year. He knew about my father and my personal situation. And when he had mentioned to me was to focus just on the interim concept. was that you have an A game, a B game, and a C game, and you have to focus on the C game first. If you focus on the C game, naturally your A game becomes better. Right? So I was terrible at managing risk. That was the first step, is to stop trying to hit home runs. If you can't, resist from putting that 50 lot on when you only have a $100,000 account, like you're never going to be able to make it and manage a bigger account. Right? And I guess part of that was I never learned how to manage a small account. Right? Because for me, it just didn't make sense. I was trying to turn my $1,000 into something that would allow me to leave my job. So a huge shout out to all these prop firms, because I feel like they're changing a lot of people's lives. They're offering capital to people that, didn't have capital. And not only that, it helped my trading personally. I couldn't keep going out and blowing my accounts. Right? With a personal account, there's no drawdown limit. You can't just say, I'm going to lose 10% and be done. You could go down 10%. And then you're like, I need to make that back. So I'm risking 10% on the next one. Like it doesn't, it doesn't translate one-to-one. But what does translate one-to-one is learning how to manage a small account and then scale it up, because it's the same parameters on every single level. If you're trading a $20,000 account at CTI and you're trading $1 million account at CTI, it's the same risk parameters. You can't go outside that. It's just the numbers change, right? The dollar amounts change. And now you're actually making a living off of it.
Now, what about if you had to give somebody a step-by-step process to get to the point where you are from woe to go, and probably, not cutting corners, but in the most efficient way possible, what would that process be?
I would say, going back to the inch-run concept, is just focus on one aspect that is holding you back. Right? It could be risk management. It could be psychology. For me, it was definitely psychology, because that had an impact on my risk management. Well, the psychology had an impact on my risk management. So until I actually focused on psychology, my risk management was never going to change. I knew risk management. I knew I should only risk this much. But because I was trying to get out of that rat race, my emotions were causing me to do something else. So you have to recognize, and that's like a self-awareness thing. I think what the market has taught me more than anything was to learn more about myself rather than the market, right? Because it's a game. You're playing a game against yourself. So you have to find whatever you're weakest at and work on that. And a lot of people just aren't okay with that. They're not okay with being weak in an area. And when you first start trading, you're weak at everything. You don't know anything. People don't really understand how the weekly range forms or what the Asian range is. There's a lot of different aspects to trading that you have to pick up, and you have to focus on them one at a time. You can't just say, I'm going to focus on risk management today and psychology tomorrow, because you're not going to master it.
And what about the guys that have, I suppose, still strategy hopping? What would you say to them? Because I think that's a big one for people to get over, is how do you get across that line of stopping strategy hopping, being happy with the strategy you've got, and then knowing that you've got an edge that's worthwhile, then sorting out your risk and sorting out your psychology.
Right, because, at the end of the day, we're all trading the same price. It doesn't matter what technical indicators you have on your end. When I'm looking at the euro, you're trading the same price that I am. So you have to focus on, does the system match my personality? Right? It doesn't have to be ICT. ICT was just the one that formed everything together for me, and it just clicked the most for me. But, it'll click for a lot of people because he explains the market in a way that other people don't really explain it. He explains order flow. He explains how the market books. But I think if they're having trouble system hopping, you just have to trust in something. For me, I didn't trust anything because it was 4, 5, 6 years that I was trying all these systems, and they were failing on me, right? I was trying the pin bars. I was trying whatever it is, TDI. I can name almost every indicator on the internet to you because I had downloaded almost all of them. Right? And not only that, but nowadays you have so much access to information. Right? 10 years ago, it wasn't like this, right? There wasn't people on YouTube explaining their thought process, minute by minute. And live streaming might change that. I don't know. But really you have to trust whoever it is you're learning from. And if you don't know that they're making money in the market consistently, I think you have to find that on your own, because once you stick around long enough, you know what works and you know what doesn't. And for me, it really wasn't about the technicals. It was about the psychology.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Right. So thinking about a price chart, what 3 things would you recommend somebody spends time mastering?
I would just say order flow. You have to understand which direction the market is going long term, right? When I was struggling, a lot of intraday price moves were throwing me off. Like, I would see a huge rally and then the next day it'd be down. So you have to focus on the market's only going one direction, right? They're only generating interest in the other direction because they want more people to buy into it before they slam it against them. So when you're looking at a chart, you have to understand what's going on in the world, first of all, right? We know there's all these economic pressures going on between Russia, Ukraine, China. There's so many things going on. You have to stay in tune with all of that and then build a technical picture behind that, right? It was almost like my career. Like, I understood how to read drawings and put together a budget, but you have to understand the macro aspect of it as well. I had to understand material prices. There's all these different skill sets and things that you have to stay on top of. When lumber was shooting through the roof, I had to use that knowledge to negotiate with my subcontractors, right? So you have to understand what's going on around in the world and why the chart is going that certain direction. Because this year is literally, 80% of my trades have been short euro, and I haven't deviated from that.
Now, what about, you've constantly talked about mindset throughout the interview, right? But if you had to give somebody something that you've learned over the years to get your mindset on point, especially in the moment of getting to the charts, have you got any tips or hints or hacks that you can drop on the show?
I guess the one thing is to just submit. You have to submit to life in general, right? You're not in control of anything but yourself. If I could have controlled things differently in my life, I would have. But, trading doesn't work that way and life doesn't work that way. So when you place that trade, just submit to whatever is going to happen, and be okay with that. And understand that the numbers behind what you're doing make sense, right? You can be okay taking 7 losses in a row and making, having 3 good trades and making that all back, right? So you have to think about long-term, think about the numbers. Treat it as a business. A lot of people treat it as a hobby. They want to get rich quick. If they treat it like the lottery, right? They deposit $5,000-$10,000 and put it all on black. I was doing that for a long time. And you have to take things slow. You have to make good financial decisions. That's really what trading is, right? You have to take good financial decisions. Is this going to pay me or not?
Now,
my whatever my opinion was of the market. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're not going to move it. You're not going to sway it.
Right.
Now, a couple of quick fire questions here before we wrap up. Like, what's the what strategies do you use to manage trades or exit trades?
So really, I like scaling out a little bit around like end of day. So around lunchtime when things get slow, if I'm in a profitable position, I'm either scaling something off and tightening my stop, or I'm taking the whole position off, and then I'll come back the next day. I don't like having overnight risk. I don't sleep well at night. Like, I'm already thinking about trading nonstop. Like, my wife has said, I speak in my sleep. I was yelling Bitcoin. So like, you really have to become obsessed with markets. Not only that, but obsessed with getting better. And you have to focus on the right things. You have to stick to the process. You can't deviate from it, because it doesn't matter how many years you're profitable in the market. You could have one bad week that just destroys all of that. All that hard work you put in, right? Staircase up, elevator down. You have to be on top of your game all the time.
Now, do you have a recommended trading book or a resource?
For me personally, I loved Market Wizards. Market Wizards for me was amazing because you got all the perspectives of professional traders in different markets, right? Not only that, they were trading different instruments, but a lot of what they had to talk about was the same. A lot of their psychology, how they thought about the markets was the same, even though they were trading different strategies, different markets. So that is one of my top books. And then as far as a podcast, Chat with Traders for me is great. And also I got to give a huge thumbs up to you and your channel. You know, all these trading podcasts are amazing. I think, you know, like we were just talking about, you know, 10 years ago, there wasn't this much information on the internet. Like you couldn't even find these stories about profitable traders online.
No. This is like a modern day Market Wizards to a certain degree, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, it's interesting because Rod told me, you know, he said we're the next generation of smart money, and I really believe that. Like a lot of those old people were, you know, I wouldn't say old people, but the people that were trading that had to be on the floor, they saw a whole different marketplace, right? But the emotions were still the same. You saw people blowing up their accounts and walking home or taking the bus home because they, you know, they had to sell their car or whatever the case is. You know, it's a real thing. You have to always manage your downside risk because you could blow your account up at any point. Yeah. So you always have to manage yourself. You always have to manage your mindset. And you always have to think about long-term. What do I want to be in 5-10 years from now? Like for me personally, I want to be managing $10 to $15 million of my own book. And I'm not going to manage it any different because in my career, you know, doing a project that was $5 million, it was the same thing for a $20 million home. It was just nicer finishes, but the process was still the same throughout.
Now, we're getting close to the end of the show here. Now, I don't even know if you've got a preferred broker and trading platform, but if you have, let us know. Because
yeah, so I mean, all these prop firms have their own brokerages. I like using MT4, but what I did as like a hack was I created a master account at Oanda because they're one of the brokers that allow me to trade off of TradingView. So what I do is I actually remove my P&L from TradingView. So when I have my open position, it just tells me how many pips I'm up or down. And the dollar doesn't, you know, the dollar amount doesn't have any impact on my, you know, emotional decision making.
Yeah. It's funny because I actually built a tool for MT4 that I use. And in the various iterations, I've had like, oh, what I'll do is I'll put money in here and I'll show you what the deposit. And then I was like, what am I doing? Get rid of the money. Get rid of the money.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
all I get is like, it goes green when it tells me how many R I'm up. So like if I'm up 3R, it'll say 3R. But if it's down, it's down. There's nothing on the screen to show that it's down.
Exactly. And that
last trade, I've got no idea.
That for me was a huge hack because when I saw my trade copier dashboard, when I saw I'm making 0.75% on, you know, $1 million account, right? That's $7,500. On my smaller account, it's like $125. So just seeing that real time, like seeing that percentage gain, I just know I can scale that up profitably. It doesn't, you know, I'm not trying to take $5,000 to $1 million tomorrow, right? I'm trying to just aim for that specific percentage a month and then just trade with more capital.
Hey folks, ever wonder what broker I use? Well, I use Hanko Trade. It was a no-brainer because I was looking for a broker with good trading conditions and one that wouldn't restrict my leverage. Now, by joining Hanko Trade, I've also cut down my trading costs significantly with their super low commission of just $1 per 100K. You can learn more at hankotrade.com or just click the link I've put in the description. Righty-ho, last question of the show. If you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would just say don't give up. Don't give up, definitely. You know, you're going to get slapped around a lot in the market. Every time you get slapped around, you have to use it as a learning lesson because either you quit or you keep going, right? For me, the light at the end of the tunnel was that I could make as much money as I wanted on my own timeline. And that's what drove me for years. Like a lot of people don't have that drive or even don't believe you. If you tell them, hey, you could make $100,000, $1 million a month, eventually, right? A lot of people, it doesn't register with them. So, you know, I think if you don't know anybody, I mean, I don't know anybody personally that's doing it full time because, right, it's so, you know, it's few and far between. Like nobody really talks about the market in person. But I think just being exposed to people that are making that much money, and Twitter for me is an amazing space because there's some amazing traders on there that you see their P&L swing up and down six figures every single day. And and it doesn't even bother them, right? So I think you have to focus on the long term. If you eventually want to make that money, you have to focus on the right process and not worrying so much about the money. It'll eventually come to you, right? I had one big trade that paid for 5 years of losses, but if I wasn't around for that one Bitcoin short, you know, I could have quit and been still working my day job.
Awesome. Well, look, fantastic interview here, Kyle. Before we wrap up, what's the best way for the guys to get hold of you?
Yeah, they can reach me on Twitter at JadeCapFX or Instagram at jadecap.kn.
Cool. Well, look, guys, a big thank you to Kyle for sharing with us today. Everything discussed here, along with all those links, are in the show notes. To find them, simply search for Kyle in the search box on tradingnut.com. Until next time, I wish all my listeners trading happiness and success. All right, there you have it, folks. Interview done and dusted with Kyle. Now, look, he did shoot a video after the show, so go and check that out on his show notes page. He breaks down how he stays funded by picking directional bias using ICT-style concepts, so you're going to learn those. Also, we've got the Trading Nut Funded Cup registration ends this week. Competition starts next week. You can win a $100,000 funded account with City Traders Imperium for taking out that. There are other funded accounts up for grabs as well. Also, Algo Funder Mastermind bot, the Obsession bot that we created last month, is available, but you've got to join the Robot Builders Club this month of July 2022 to get access to it. So that's still a chance to get access to that. And last but not least, the new pre-market analysis on Sundays. If you want to get that smart money view of the market going ahead in the week, then please make sure you subscribe to the Trading Nut YouTube channel. Click on that notifications bell and click all to see when these videos drop. All right, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.